In 2014, New York State is a walled garden of cryptocurrency regulation. Starting a Bitcoin business is impossible. Starting to change the world is insane. Escape from New York Department of Financial Services overly complex and naive Bitcoin rules that only serve to maintain entrenched oligarchies. Rated R. But that's
Uh,
tomorrow's movie. Today's movie is Snow Crash. I'm Tom, and this is Nick. Say hi, Nick.
hey Tom. Hi Tom. I like that. Who did that? Finif?
That
Yeah,
was-
they put. I like your little picture up there with your face on it. That's awesome.
yeah, you really have to zoom in on it if you want to see the Mad Bitcoins part because the actual lettering is so long. But yeah, I just thought it was great. Oh, there's even a part I didn't read. It says Mad Bitcoins as proof of snake. That's funny. Instead of Snake Blitzkin. Funny stuff. And we're back with Snow Crash, which is a funny book, which we read some more of, but not all of yet. And we're going to stick with our tradition here, which is pretty much going through the notes that I have, the things that I've highlighted, things that I thought were great. And we're going to start off with a couple of long quotes. The franchise and the virus work on the same principle. What thrives in one place will thrive in another. You just have to find a sufficiently virulent business plan, condense it into a three-ring binder, its DNA, Xerox it, and embed it in the fertile lining of a well-traveled highway, preferably one with a left turn lane. Then the growth will expand until it runs up against the property lines. Very much corporations as a virus. And then he goes on a paragraph later, he says, but when a businessman from New Jersey goes to Dubuque, I can't even say that, Dubuque? I don't know. He knows he can walk into a McDonald's and no one will stare at him. He can order without having to look at the menu, and the food will always taste the same. McDonald's is home, condensed into a three-ring binder and Xeroxed. No surprises is the motto of the franchise ghetto. It's good housekeeping seal, subliminally blazoned on every sign and logo that make up the curves and grids of light that outline the basin. So very much a world of corporations where corporations have become viruses.
Did you know that that was how Domino's got so popular? They were able to master their like chain of franchises that they could make the same pizza taste the same like anywhere in the world, so that everything tastes the same. No matter where you go, Domino's pizza tastes like Domino's pizza.
It's amazing, and eventually they start to profit from all the economic incentives for that vertical market in economies
Hmm.
of scale, things like that.
It's crazy.
He continues with another big quote, and this is about the people that live in the burbclaves, which are like little city-states of suburbs. He says, they've fled from the true America, the America of atomic bombs, scalping, hip-hop, chaos theory, cement overshoes, snake handlers, spree killers, spacewalks, buffalo jumps, drive-bys, cruise missiles, Sherman's March, gridlock, motorcycle gangs, and bungee jumping. They have parallel parked their bimbo boxes in identical computer-designed burbclave street patterns and secreted themselves in symmetrical sheetrock shitholes with vinyl floors and ill-fitting woodwork and no sidewalks. Vast house farms out in the low-glow wilderness. A culture medium for a medium culture. Very
Yeah,
good stuff.
very good stuff. So where did we leave off last, Tom? Hero had gone to David's, right? And now he was going back into the metaverse to look for more information, and he was meeting with Juanita at the Black Sun, right?
Yep, and YT must get underway now, she announces. The book's all about transportation, the ability to keep moving. YT is a courier. She's actually a representation of her youthful energy. She moves from place to place. She must be in motion. She's unhappy when she's not in motion. And as she says here, a dedicated thrasher could probably navigate from LA to New York by coasting from one parking lot into the next. And YT's off on a mission. She kind of works for the mafia now, and they're kind of sending her on orders. And The first order is to what's it called, an Uncle Wayne's religion franchise. I don't recall the exact Pearly Gates.
Yeah,
Uncle Wayne's Pearly Gates.
Reverend Wayne's Pearly Gates.
Pearly Gates. And at the Reverend Wayne's, the person is donating money to the church. And here's another long quote, because we're just doing long quotes today. It says, "The customer snaps her Visa card down on the fake wood altar top. It sounds like a rifle shot. The girl pries the card up using her inch-long fingernails, a dicey and complicated operation that makes YT think of insects climbing out of their egg sacs. Then she performs the sacrament, swiping the card through its electromagnetic slot. With a carefully modulated sweep of the arm, as though tearing back a veil, handing over the slip, mumbling that she needs a signature and a daytime phone number. She might as well have been speaking Latin, but that's okay, since the customer is familiar with the liturgy and signs the numbers before the words are fully spoken." And I was reminded of, Bitcoin. And then the girl says, "Thank you for your donation." The girl says, slurring the words into a single syllable. So just how inhuman the church has become, how money grubbing, and then how funny to see them still using credit cards, even in this future, that they don't have Bitcoin yet quite there. He's still kind of just satirizing the old system. The religious, it's a great analogy of the slot being a religious sign, the Christian sign of the cross. And again, just the merging of everything, that the religion is another corporation, the government is another corporation, the competing governments are all corporations, everything. And that gets us under to our next segment, where Hiro is talking to the librarian. And again, spoiler alert, spoilers here. You should have read the second to third 100 pages of Snow Crash, because we're going to ruin it all here. And what they're talking about is the Tower of Babel, and they're talking about language splitting out. And if you look at these corporations, you see kind of the things coming together, and everything going back to this level playing field of corporations and governments, different ideas being on the same level. So what we learn about Snow Crash is that the Brandy, which was one of those generic Barbie doll girls that was holding the scroll, wasn't just showing random static. It was flashing a large amount of digital information in binary form. That digital information was going straight into David's optic nerve, which is a part of the brain. And they say basically, because he studied binary code, his brain is now, like under hypnosis, it's reading binary code directly. So this virus works on programmers.
Yeah, because the hackers and programmers, their brains have been, the neurons have been connected so they can process all sorts of different languages, even at the basic most level, ones and zeros.
And then it gets much, much worse, because we learn that these programmers then are producing blood that becomes the drug Snow Crash in the real world, because there's all these other people who are into the Snow Crash, the blood drug, as opposed to the computer drug. And Hiro asks Juanita at one point, he says, "Wait a minute, Juanita, make up your mind. This Snow Crash thing, is it a virus, a drug, or a religion?" Juanita shrugs. "What's the difference?" So we're like through the rabbit hole here. We're going for all the marbles in this section. Some heavy plot going on here.
If you look at stoners, for instance, I've been a part of that culture for a while. Some people take it very religiously. They very religious about their cannabis.
And why not? One thing is good as any other thing. Drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, whatever you want to do. And then we start to learn about Enki. I'm not sure how we're going to pronounce that. Enki, good with you? Enki?
Let's go with Enki. That works for me.
All right, Enki, who about 4,000 years ago, let's see, he was driven out. He was driven out of their homeland by the invasion of Sargon II, but eventually it devolved into an empty legalism. Another attempt was made by Jesus. That one was hijacked by viral influences within 50 days of his death. I thought that was really interesting, that Jesus tried to break through this kind of programming, and that was hijacked 50 days after his death.
What is the quote he uses? He's trying to renegotiate the contract with God, I think is the quote.
I think so. Well, and he's also talking about let's see, he talks about speaking in tongues, which is glossophilia, and then it starts to get down to the 1 and the 0, and that computers rely on the 1 and the 0 to represent all things. This distinction between something and nothing, this pivotal separation between being and non-being, is quite fundamental and underlies many creation myths. He even says at one point that there's a like an Egyptian statue or Sumerian statue where the god is giving a 1 and receiving a 0, and it's a binary expression. And it looks like a hoop, and it looks like a stick. But if you think about it, a hoop and a stick are a 1 and a 0. So it starts to get really deep and metaphysical, as it says here. Religion, magic, and medicine are so completely intertwined in Mesopotamia that separating them is frustrating and perhaps impossible. So we're very much seeing the merging of things.
Yeah, what is it? I believe he also mentions that good and evil didn't exist back then. It was just like disease or something. Like it wasn't until after the fall of Babel that good and evil started to become a defined thing in human culture.
And that even disease could be perhaps a computer virus, a mind virus, that once this concept enters your mind, you start to think of your body as weak, and you start to be open to this disease, susceptible to this virus.
And we use this terminology already. Something has gone viral. We've already acknowledged today that information is a virus. It can spread as quick as a virus and maybe do as much damage. Who knows? I would say it can. I'd say it can do more damage than a physical virus, the information virus can.
Well, in the disease stuff, if anyone's studied The Secret and the power of positive thinking, it goes back to certain ideas with hypnotism and the word mesmerism, to be mesmerized. That actually comes from Dr. Mesmer, who was a real person who would basically hypnotize people and make them feel better, and they would be able to change their lives because they were mesmerized. And that's a lot of where the Christian Science movement came from, the idea that you can physician heal thyself, that you can heal your own body with thoughts. And this is basically what Stevenson is building on as well, this idea that in the Garden of Eden things were perfect and that we've had a fall and that things have changed. So.
Sorry, is my mic muted? Oh, there it goes. On my way home from my trip where I had read this section, I had to look up the Sumerian culture stuff just because it was so enthralling, and I didn't want to read on past it to spoil it, so I'm like, I'm going to just go and do something else. I hopped on my phone on the long drive home on Sunday, and I was reading about it. And man, he must have really have done some research, because I didn't put in research, but I read Wikipedia articles, going through Enki, Marduk, Sumerian culture, other things like, wow, he really researched this. Like, this isn't something he was just pulling out of his ass. He was legitimately like, oh, these are stories. Like, I think one of the names for Enki is like Absol or something like that, and AB in, I think it's Akkadian, is semen.
Oh.
So, it's like a word for semen. And
yeah, that's what he's saying. No, keep going. I don't know.
No, it's just super. It's awesome. I like when an author is going to put forth that kind of dedication to flesh out his story and where he's going with this thing. Because computer scientists, the human computer, like that's a thing that is something I'm pretty sure all computer scientists have thought of at some point. Is about the human computer, and he's writing about it from like from like how it mixes in with biblical stuff, and that's pretty neat. I find that fascinating.
And again, Stevenson's showing an incredible knowledge about the way that ideas move around. Before this had really been studied. Like, this was kind of a science fiction book in the 90s, and the actual like memes and talking about this kind of happened in the aughts. So he was, again, just right ahead of his time, perfectly on top of it, and just understanding what's going on. And the things that he's describing in the past, these language viruses and the Tower of Babel and the dis-ease and the fall from great, it was all right there. And like he says here that that was magic back then, but now, except in the metaverse, that is where magic is possible. The metaverse is a fictional structure made out of code, and code is just another form of speech, the form that computers understand. The metaverse in its entirety could be considered a single vast Namshub enacting itself on L. Bob Reif's fiber optic network. We get back to the villain here, who seems to be supplying the internet, supplying the virus, spreading the virus, having that crazy boat full of people talking in tongues. He seems to be cycling people out. We learn a little later about how
that was something YT picked up on at the Reverend Wayne's, right? Is that people were taking the drug and then speaking in tongues. And she was like, whoa, this is kind of creepy. Like, what's going on there? I think that was the first time she was exposed to it, really, right? Like, she's just now in this section being exposed to what Snow Crash is. Like, Hero already has a good idea. He's been exposed to it. He sees what it can do. But she has no idea what it is, and she's just now learning about it.
And this is the section of the book where YT's really sent out into the world. She's sent first to the Reverend Pearly Gates to see what's going on there. Then she goes to a forbidden zone to actually try to buy some Snow Crash. And I'm not sure where the section is, but they also talk about the inflation again. Here it is. She opens the... this is great. She opens the glove compartment, as anyone else would call it, and finds a thick bundle of worn-out, dirty trillion-dollar bills. Ed Mises, and Ed Mises was an economist back in the day, and it says, "Geez, couldn't you get any gippers? This is kind of bulky." He's like, "This is the kind of thing a courier would pay with, because we're all pawn scum, right?" No comment. It's like, "What is this? A quadrillion dollars? 1.5 quadrillion. Inflation, you know." And just again, what a horrible thing inflation's done to the society, and how to judge all the money pre-inflation, post-inflation. And a lot of people think that might still happen, that this little bit of futurism in the book is still right on, and that the dollar's headed for an incredible climb. And again, having Bitcoin, having an alternative system, could make all the difference when that happens. No one's factored that in yet, that we would have a place to go if the dollar becomes like the Deutschmark.
And where people went in this is they went to the yen and they went to the Hong Kong dollar, also known as Kong bucks, which is Mr. Lee's Hong Kong, Greater Hong Kong.
Kong bucks.
Kong bucks. I figured that out just like putting it together. I was like, Kong bucks, what the heck does that mean? And I was like, oh, Hong Kong, it's Hong Kong dollars. Duh. But that we get introduced to NG. The security, security. He's a security specialist, and he works almost exclusively with Mr. Lee's Hong Kong. And right now, it seems like he's also been recruited by Uncle Enzo to, chauffeur around YT on this mission. Give her a little backup.
He's also switched sides. Remember that in this world, everyone's an independent player, and if you move from corporation to corporation, you're going to get a different perks package. And clearly the Mafia is supplying him with his drug now, or not even a drug, he was into Freeze.
His Freon.
Freon.
It's chill.
Chill, yeah, because he runs his air conditioner in his van. And tell him about the van, Nick.
Oh, man.
Again, spoiler alert like crazy, but NG... he had some disaster, some tragedy happen. He lost some limbs, and now he's built what would you call it? The world's greatest wheelchair.
The world's greatest wheelchair, absolutely. He took. I think they said it was like a German airport fire truck or something like that, or like rescue vehicle, and outfitted it with armor and all sorts of crazy crap. And he is in this cool pouch where he controls everything, and he's in the metaverse. He's 100% in the metaverse. You know, that's amazing. It's almost like he's a Matrix person. He's driving around in this.
The scene reminds you of the Matrix. We've already met the librarian, who reminds us all a lot of the Matrix, the architect, and then now we're meeting NG, who first meets YT in a palatial Vietnamese estate, probably around 1955, before the war. You know, rice paddies, white walls, white picket fence, the whole thing. And YT notices that he's intensely monitoring this bank of 4 television screens. She's like, "What's going on? Why aren't you paying attention to me?" Da, da, da. And he's like, "I'm driving over to pick you up." He's like, "What?" And then YT gets in the car, and she meets real NG, who's kind of like a paraplegic in this
neoprene sack, I think is what it was called.
It reminds me very much of the gear they have in Ready Player One when they go into their metaverse, their 3D internet. It's very much all about the sensor suit that you put on, because the different kind of sensors. And of course, he's existing entirely in the metaverse. So he's watching the monitors, which are helping him drive the car. It's an incredible idea.
I think it was mentioned that also his rendering of his house and himself and everything is at like the highest possible level. Like he must have supercomputers that very few people have access to in order to run this thing. And it makes sense because that's where he lives. He can't enjoy the real world any longer. He can only enjoy life through the metaverse as a full person. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that's like a big reason why things like Oculus VR are important for researching, because there are people who might be able to get back control of things that they lost, at least live, ways they wish they could continue to live because of accidents or whatnot. So that's pretty cool.
I read an article about Oculus VR, and they said they had like a chair that you would like lay on, and then you would fly. That they had it all set up like a bird with wings, and it's
I think I saw that.
Yeah, and then the guy in the article, of course, the headliner, the leader was, Oculus VR made me believe that I was flying. And of course, everybody's going to read that headline. It was incredible bait. But that could happen, and it could be great for people that have that are challenged in this way, paraplegics, etc. So,
yeah.
NG, we're hanging out with NG, and they're going to go get some Snow Crash. And the problem is that the Snow Crash junkies use it right away, and that the drug dealers don't even have access to the drug. The drug's in like a special suitcase. You put your little pill container on the top. You put in your code. You put in your card. I'm surprised you don't even have to put your money in. They could just have the money show up in this thing as well. They don't even have to. I guess she's got a quadrillion dollars. You can't fit it all in there.
And that's not enough. Remember, because they're like, oh, we need a quadrillion 0.75, and she's like, I only got a quadrillion and a half. Oh, crap. They're like, well, inflation.
They're like, you better spend it fast. You're going to need a wheelbarrow soon.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a joke back to World War II and World War I, like the Deutschmark. So again, funny joke until it happens here. But so in order for YT to capture the drug, looks like I took a lot of notes on Enki. I'm going to skip by some of those. She has to throw the drug up in the air. Then he has this little drone, which again ahead of his time. No one had drones back then. This is incredibly forward-thinking. The drone's going to pick up the drug out of the air, freeze it, bring back the sample, and then YT's going to run out of there, and they're not going to notice her. They're not going to catch her or something. Is the plan? It seems really sketchy.
It seems super sketchy, and she seems like she is not very down, but she's a crazy chick. She's gonna do it anyways. That's her job, and she takes her job seriously. So she prepares like all her, what is it, the spray knuckles? What is that thing called? Where
she's got like brass knuckles in a can.
Yeah, it's like
and she's gonna hit him with the brass knuckles. And she's got a blinder, and it turns out that doesn't matter because YT has a whole other set of friends, and I'm not just talking about the mafia, because on the way out she's like, well, I always have the dog chains of the leader of the mafia around my neck if I have any real troubles. So even she knows that she's kind of protected now. But YT's also protected because one time her and her boyfriend saved a dog, and as we learned from NG, he used to do the security work for Greater Lee's Greater Hong Kong, and yeah, the rat things are made out of dogs.
Yes, they're dogs that live in a virtual world and have it wonderful.
Yeah, and they're like, the dogs are so happy. They're always chasing frisbees and eating bones. And because of YT's suggestion, he's even going to work on a program where they can scratch themselves or lick themselves. Or
lick their balls or something like that.
Program. Yeah. So she's even added to their happiness. And we even learned through a kind of strangely interconnected story that YT's dog was indeed captured by these people that turn dogs into dog robots. And that somewhere out there, hopefully to be involved in the story later, is YT's dog, who still remembers that nice girl. So, just great storytelling.
Yeah, what is it? NG, as soon as she throws it into the air, all the drug dealers flip out. What is it? The Whirlwind Reaper is the name of his drone. Flies out, grabs it, freezes it, and then all of a sudden, everybody just starts getting ripped to shreds. And she's like, whoa, what's going on? And NG released the freaking rat things. He had a whole pack of rat things in the back of his badass wheelchair.
Yeah, it's an incredible power, and it just shows what he's packing around with him. Raven has a nuclear weapon, NG has a ton of rat things and a drone, And it shows, again, like the idea that these people are city-states, that they're separate from each other, and that at any point they need to be able to flip with their gear,
Yeah.
with their weapons, with everything ready to go, and they are, NG flips.
Yeah, it's the NG character I like. I think it's awesome. Like we said, that would be an awesome scene to see in a movie, right? That whole thing, I'd love to see that.
Oh, I can so see the part where the van pulls up to the curb and it skids out, and the door kind of throws itself open, and there's just kind of this black bag of body, like in the thing, connected all Matrixy style, and it's just like a body, and you're like, whoa! And then YT gets in anyway, and of course the audience is freaking out. YT, what are you doing? Get in this car! Like they're completely with her. Like she's a very good character to emphasize with.
Yeah, for sure. So what were some of the notes you had on Enki?
Oh, I just have a zillion quotes about the Sumerian language, about this being, is this the machine language of the world? Hero asks. And there's just a lot about, here's Enki somehow understood the connection between language and the brain, knew how to manipulate it, the same way that a hacker, knowing the secrets of a computer system, can write code to control it. Digital Namshubs. And what we're really talking about here is what is L. Bob Reif doing? Like, what is this L. Ron Hubbard sound-alike doing in this world? And it sounds like he's mastered all the fiber and the bandwidth, so he spread the internet as a virus, and now that's not enough for him. He's erasing people's brains with Snow Crash, getting these Tower of Babel people that talk to each other. We meet a programmer along the way that YT is kind of trying to save from the religious people, and the programmer tells us that her life was fine until one day she saw this static, and then she becomes one of these Snow Crash people. And it really is, it was an example of drugs and dropping out, heroin, that kind of this serious addiction where her life changed and she's no longer a programmer in Mountain View. She's now just one of these crazy reverend people, and it very much sounds like the Matrix, where they turn her into a cow for a while, and her blood is producing this disease, the virus that makes Snow Crash in the real world. And that was just creepy stuff. And that Reif is doing this to the smartest people, to the programmers that are susceptible to the original virus. That's the only way to produce it.
And that's how it programs their DNA or something, and then he takes their DNA, turns it into a drug for people who aren't programmers to become infected with the Snow Crash.
It's a lot like Philip K. Dick's story that they turned into a movie. I've blocked on the name right now, but the drug one, Scanner Darkly.
Oh, yeah.
Darkly, because they have a lot of crazy drugs in that, and just the one they're on, the way that I'm pretty sure that in that one too, that the rehab facility had taken all these people who were on the drug, and they were using them to make more of the drug. So and it's kind of like Dune, right, with the spice, where people would take the spice and become part of the spice, and then the worms would make more spice, and just all the kind of the way that the addiction blurs the lines, and that people become the thing they are addicted to, and the thing they are addicted to becomes them. Like it's great metaphors it's exploring.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. And then after we see YT talks to that programmer, she starts to realize, oh shit, something is wrong. My mom is in danger.
Yep.
And so she starts. Yeah, her mom's a programmer, and she cares about her mom. She doesn't want her mom to become like these mindless goofs, and she doesn't even know what her mom does at the feds. Her mom doesn't even know what she does for the feds. So she rushes home to try to save her mom, which was
he smashes her mom's computer, and
with an award she won for being a good federal employee.
He knew that award meant so much to me, and then pretty much it seems like, I'm not entirely sure what happened next, but it seems like they have to go immediately to the Fed world to replace the stolen computer, the smashed computer. To prove your loyalty, you have to check in right away, kind of, right?
Yeah, and then the other thing I think that was towards the end of these 100 pages was Hero became a gargoyle. That's right. That's right. He bought the best stuff, so you can't even tell he's a gargoyle, but he's a gargoyle.
Yeah, he's a gargoyle now. Gargoyle. And YT makes a little fun of him, but not as much as she should or probably will.
Right? She probably should have ripped on him a little harder about that, especially since he had talked a little bit too much shit earlier in the book on
Oh
gargoyles and
yeah,
how low they were.
that's another great thing to see his monologue change from Lagos is a gargoyle, and he's so embarrassing to see him in public, and he's not paying attention to what I'm doing. The hero does the same thing the rest of the book. He pays no attention to anyone. He's always on the internet reading stuff. It's very good. So.
And then he goes and buys what sounds like one of the coolest bikes, motorcycles in book history or media history that I've ever heard. It's a new Yamaha. It's an electric bike. It has, I think it's the first bike with smart wheels for a motorcycle. So he's got, YT's cool smart wheel technology on this really badass motorcycle. And he buys himself a new get-up. It's bulletproof and, scuff proof and stuff in case he falls. And I like how he talks to the guy because he's gargoyling it up. He's downloading all the information on the person who owns the dealership, the dude he's talking, the salesman he's talking to, and all that stuff. He's like, "Oh, you guys have this bike?" "No, we don't have that bike." He's like, "I'm pretty sure it's gonna arrive in the next 30 minutes. So let me just get that bike."
Yeah, it's on the truck right here. I know where it is. And again, it's because information. Hero's power is information. He knows all the shipping structures. He has that little Earth program. He can look at the traffic. And it's pretty much the classic hero suiting up for a battle scene. He gets his swords, he gets his leather, he gets his helmet, and he gets his horse, his motorcycle.
He doesn't get a helmet because they don't wear helmets nowadays. They have things that immediately pop up and save your head.
Oh, yeah, airbags on the neck type thing, yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. So he can look, again, movie people. He can look even cooler in the movie not wearing a helmet, having two awesome swords behind him on this black bike, dressed in all black, headed up the road to Oregon.
With some cool Google Glass-like thing on or some crap,
Yeah, Google Glass thing because he's on the metaverse all the time. It's all right there. All of our concepts are in this book, and I'm sure someone owns the rights. Someone should make a movie out of it. I don't know what they're doing, but
or maybe run it as a mini-series. Maybe that would be better, like a 6-part mini-series or something.
Sci-fi on what they did for the Dune.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But I think we've covered most everything. We didn't get that much into the Sumerian stuff, but that's pretty long and pretty deep. But basically, Lagos has, figured out that this is all a virus, information. It came from somewhere. I think he called it the metavirus or something.
Yep, metavirus and just a thought virus and just all of the different. This is pretty much before the word meme, before we really talked about memes and how memes propagate and that kind of idea. So Stevenson, again, ahead of his time here. Really on this.
And they're called me's actually, the human programs are me's, which is kind of interesting. I didn't know that. I'd never heard of that before, but that's actually what they are. And there's all sorts of me's. There's me. It's not a good or bad thing, like we were saying earlier. There's me's for how to build a house, or how to bake bread, or how to be a prostitute, or how to raise a city.
Yeah. And so we're ready for what's going to go on in Oregon is the raft is landing in Oregon, the USS Enterprise, with all of these strange boats attached and different people surviving and not surviving the trip across. And then there's all these homeowners that don't want the raft people. They've hired security 24/7. They're guarding the beaches. It's a beachfront invasion of these people that speak Babel and are worshiping El Bab Rife. And it's we were talking earlier about zombies, and it's how zombies represent the people from the third world coming up and taking away the privilege of all these fat, lazy Americans. And, here it is again. The zombies are coming in from the coast. America's, coastline, ocean protection is never enough. So.
Yeah, I wonder how many people are on the raft. It sounds like it's huge, way bigger than an aircraft carrier. It sounds like there's even boats almost as big just strapped to the aircraft carrier, cargo ships and shit. It's got to be huge.
The flotsam, the jetsam, all the boats around it just attached to this thing being pulled because the raft has the engines. The raft has the money to burn a little bit of gasoline or whatever they take to get over here, and the rest of it they just float with it. But even the raft, the whole thing's become so much that they can't really maneuver it on this round. When they're going across the Pacific towards the U.S., they have too many boats, and what they're actually going to do is drop off a ton of these boats, then be able to maneuver a little bit to get back on the Indonesian currents. So it's fascinating details.
Yeah, it is. It is. He does a really good job at describing all that kind of stuff. I like it. The book is not. It's not a hard read, but it's not written at such a low level that I feel stupid, like he's talking down to me, kind of thing.
Well,
So
a lot of we really got to the meat section here with the information as ideas, computer viruses, brain viruses, and he's not holding anything back here. He's going to full philosophy, full history. Anything he wants to reference comes in, and if you made it through the first section, this is your intellectual reward. This is where you get the ideas of the book, is in this section. So.
Yeah, he fleshes it out amazing. He does such a good job of delving into like what these cultures are. He tells you their different names of the gods. He tells you what an En is. Like Enki, En is like somebody who was ruling over the Mies of an area. So like if you lived in a small town, the En was the person who either wrote the Mies or dished out the Mies. And Enki, that was like, I guess, became his name because he was the En of Eridu or something like that in southern Iraq.
Yeah. Well, and also means first, right? Like N's the first officer, and Ki could just be Ki, or Ki could be energy as well, the Chinese Ki, so, or Japanese perhaps. But yeah, and it talks about Enki language lent itself to Enki's neuro-linguistic hacking. So again, all of the ideas coming together, the internet, the culture, brains, thoughts, all these things.
And he also talked about how after Enki did his Namshub and broke up the dominance of the Sumerian language and the controlling of everybody being like one thing, how people just came up with systems to defend against going back to that. Like he talks about how the Jews went to more like legal systems, rigid legal systems that you abide by and things like that to prevent this thing from happening again. And I think he makes an allusion that they kind of understood at one point way back how this information viruses work. So it was pretty neat.
Yeah, and he's also talking about the way that these viruses spread and what they did, and that it seems like Babel, the splitting up of the languages, was somehow to prevent this from happening, that the Sumerian language was especially susceptible to these viruses that he was writing. So they had the Babel thing go, and then everyone's minds were twisted up. But that was actually a benefit because you weren't susceptible to this virus. But now that everyone speaks machine code, they've done the same thing. We've re-babbled ourselves. And now all of these computer programmers are susceptible to this virus, and this L. Bob Reif guy is doing whatever he's trying to do. So.
And it's awesome. It sounds talking about Dune. That was kind of what like the God Emperor was doing, right? They split up humans across the universe or galaxy or whatever, so they wouldn't just die out.
It was a plan to survive, and it's much like what Stephen Hawking said, that we need to get off this planet if we're really going to survive, because right now we have all of our eggs in this basket.
We're centralized, baby. We need to decentralize humanity.
There it is. Split up the blockchain, like Jeff Garzik says, blockchain in space. Get it out of there, man. So keep it safe. Keep it secret. So. But I think we're about out of time for today, so next time we're going to read pages 300 to 400. I guess that's about 60% to 80% in the Kindle. So this will be our second to last session coming up with Snow Crash, and if you want to vote for what book we should do next, you can vote at thegoodreads.com. We've got a World Crypto Network book club there. We've got links to it in the Reddit. That's reddit.com/r/World Crypto Network.
There's a book I'd like to add to that list because I keep hearing about it and I've read a little summary on it. I want to read Daemon, the book about the DAO that runs. It's all about what happens when this DAO, like somebody who created or whatever, the news feed pops up that he died, and the DAO, kicks into action, and all the little Daemon scripts, go into action and do whatever they're going to do. That sounds like a good book. Maybe we should add that to the list, or maybe we could add it after this voting session and see if people want to do that.
I'd like to see it added to the list. I mean, right now we're thinking probably Ready Player One. It's so good, and it like Snow Crash. It's fun and light. I want to read Neuromancer, but at the same time, Neuromancer is part of a trilogy, so I don't know if we want to commit to doing the trilogy, and otherwise we have to leave people hanging. I don't know if people like.
Well, then maybe it'll encourage people to pick up the rest of the trilogy themselves. I don't know. We could talk about that, discuss that on the Reddit or on the Goodreads forums if anybody in the audience would like to have a comment on that.
Definitely. And it looks like we've got a question, kind of a Bitcoin cryptocurrency related question, but we'll give it a shot anyway. Would you know what is happening to Cloak, or what has happened to Cloak? And I'm imagining that Cloak is another one of the anonymous focused altcoins, which is all the rage after Darkcoin became popular. So it's an imitator, and that it probably got pumped, so it went straight up and everyone was doing really well, and then at some point it got dumped and it went straight down. So without looking at it and without knowing anything about it, I imagine that Cloak got pumped and dumped, and then now it's a long-term anybody's guess as to whether their technology has value.
And not just that, a lot of these altcoins, while we in the crypto space are aware of them and we know of them, they're very, very small. I mean, just imagine, Bitcoin is still very, very small in terms of, financial scale of the world. These other currencies have a fraction of the market cap. They have a fraction of the and even a fraction of the user base, and their volume is tiny, tiny, tiny volume that is very easily manipulated by people who have the time and the very little resources required to manipulate them.
And you never know who is holding all the Cloak, whether it was just a bag holder or whether it was the developers or someone related to them that they had to pay. And at some point, I
believe Cloak was a pre-mine free coin. I don't think they pre-mined it at all. I think it was like a launch, but it doesn't matter at that point. If the early people get in and they can hold it and do whatever, especially, like I said, really small networks.
Yeah. So yeah, be careful out there. Remember, even Bitcoin prices have been down today. So you never know if these new things are going to take off or what they're going to do. But let's go and FM Bitcoin, man, 536.
Woo-wee.
Ooh, that's low.
I need to see what I can get this week.
Couple of nice recoveries there. People are trying to find a floor. We went to 524 a little earlier.
I think watching the volume is key on this, Tom. I really do. I think if the volume can get up to 80 to 100,000 coins a day, we might see a rally kick off, because that seems to be what happens. I know it's not, the past doesn't predict the future, but a lot of volume means there's a lot of interest, and a lot of interest, creates volatility, which spurs even more interest. And maybe we can kick off some more user adoption if we can get some more volume going, even if it's in the down way. Volatility sparks interest, down or up.
I like this new feature of Bitcoin Wisdom. It draws this little line through everything, so I can pretend that I can read the chart. Look how perfect this line is. It's a perfect line, but at the same time, look how perfect this line is, and these two lines together equal this line. It's perfectly flat. It's the flattest line there is.
It's amazing to look at this chart, because to me it's just like a squiggly line. Of course it's made of data. There's data backing the squiggly line, but I mean there's data backing the squiggly line I draw on a map too.
Well, and if we drew it into the future, then you wouldn't even know.
Right.
So, let's see. Would you get the new? Another question. Would you get the new Trezor wallet for $119? And generally, yes. Mine has shipped, but it hasn't arrived yet. So I look forward to trying it out, and of course, we'll try to share that with you guys. Do a how-to, give you my impressions of it. I do have a code right here on madbitcoins.com. If you click on this link or use the code MADBitcoins when you buy a Trezor wallet, I'll get a donation of 5% of your purchase fee. So in that way, I'm definitely supporting it. As far as the actual product itself, there seems to be about 3 different ways to securely store your Bitcoin. You can boot to Tails Linux, as I describe in my how-to videos, which is pretty easy if you're a computer person. It's a little more difficult if you're not. You can buy a Piper paper wallet printer, which is a very simple to use product that just prints paper wallets, and that's a good way to secure your Bitcoin. And then the third one seems to be this Trezor wallet, which is a special hardware wallet that has the keys inside that can sign Bitcoin transactions without exposing your private keys. The details on that, I'm not 100% sure on the technical details, etc., but just in general, this does sound like the silver bullet for keeping your Bitcoin secure. You could never spend all of your money. No one could ever get your private key because it would stay in this device. Nick, what do you think about the Trezor?
I think it's really cool, and once I get a little bit spare cash to kick towards one, I'm going to pick one up. I believe Andreas got his, and he said he's really stoked about it. You should get yours soon too, right? Or did you already get it?
It's in the mail somewhere. I need to double check on the shipping info, and for all I know, it's here. It's in a pile of mail somewhere. But and it could be very small. Looking at the actual size of the device and the little box that it looks.
Yeah,
like.
I think the box is not very big.
But yeah, I definitely suggest the Trezor for trying it out. And again, if you have more than a couple $100 in Bitcoin, you should probably be looking for something like the Trezor, the paper wallets, the Piper paper wallet printer to store those Bitcoins offline securely where your codes are. Now, Stephen has another question that when you import the private key, would the Trezor become worthless?
It doesn't import the private keys. It just signs it.
Yeah, so the key stays in this box. And I'm pretty sure maybe it can do different keys, or you could reset it to a new key. It also gives you, I know from the basic instructions that I read, that it gives you one of those mnemonics, so you can write down a word phrase. So if you had trouble getting into your wallet, you could reconnect it with a word phrase. So should be pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I would check it out, read all the facts about it, try to read the instruction manual. Totally understand it before you order it, but I was convinced enough to order it, and I don't have that many Bitcoin or anything, but if you have $1,000 in Bitcoin sitting on Coinbase or sitting on blockchain, it's secure, but it's not that secure, and this thing would be way better. It'd be way better to get this for $100, get one of the Piper paper wallet printers for $100, try a Tails Linux disk for free. Do one of these things to secure your Bitcoins before you lose your Bitcoins. So
that's a little too much information, Stephen, but thanks for sharing.
Yeah, Stephen's kind of telling us too much, but he has some good money, and he should make sure it's safe in there, man. Because the thing about the hacking is that we've all seen it time and time again. They take all your Bitcoins. They don't just take some or half. It's not like the hackers need just a little bit of money. They take it all. And remember, Bitcoin's like money on a counter. Like when it slides off the counter, it's gone. Like your money's gone.
The crime's the same whether they took 1 Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoins. So they might as well take it all.
From the hacker perspective, they get control of your account and they're like, oh, 31.3 Bitcoins. Type, send to me, done, and it's over.
And then you'll never find it again because that guy knows how to launder it better than you know how to track it.
Yeah, well, and definitely better than you know how to secure it. And remember, it's not your fault. We're all new to computer security. We're all not good at it. We've had
we've been convenienced away from it. We really have. We've been convenienced away because everybody was like, oh, I need to get my grandma on the internet. I need to get everybody on the internet. We need to make it as easy as possible. And when you make something as easy for as possible to use, you create all sorts of issues when you do that. You create back doors that are possible and things.
I've been watching all those kids react, teens react, elders react videos, and a lot of them are about the internet and computers, video games, the original systems that we had, and these kids and teenagers seem to have no idea about the understanding about the fundamental framework of the internet or how it works, or how computers worked, or why networks were important, or what a computer's like without a network, or how Wi-Fi works, any of these things. And they're in for a rude awakening. The fundamentals of these things are what you're going to need to know to understand security. You have to understand the difference between a computer that's connected to a network and a computer that's not connected, a computer that you put USB sticks into, a computer that you don't put USB sticks into. Like those are the only secure computers in the world, are those totally unconnected computers. So. Maybe.
And supposedly even nowadays those aren't that safe because they can pick up like the vibrations on your CPU's heatsink and figure out what the hell it was processing, and that's creepy.
Or the
That is
NSA
so crazy.
installed a bug into all the computer motherboards that just sends it like a radio bug, and they can just hover in and see what's going on your USB port. Like that kind of stuff's all coming through. So. But that's
luckily I haven't been Bitcoin robbed yet, knock on wood. I try to do my best to keep as many coins as I can offline and away from even my machines that I think are safe. I'm very wary of touching too many live coins on those machines. I'm more amped to you'll see me. I have a hard drive that I keep separate just to plug in if I want to boot up a virtual machine to access a Bitcoin wallet. I'm a little bit paranoid about it.
Yep, and that's just because you don't even think there's anything wrong with your computer, but there could always be a keylogger. You don't know what's really going on your machine, and we don't have the kind of computers yet that would tell you what's really going on. Like there's a way of securing these things and saying these are the processes running, these are the new processes. Have you changed anything? What's going on? There's all kinds of other ways of monitoring this, but we obscure all that to make computers simpler.
And that's one of the reasons why Linux is secure, is because there's so many different distributions, whereas like Windows has a more uniform platform and more uniform distribution model. Linux is all over the place. You could roll out your own distro, and if somebody's trying to get in that machine, it might not work exactly the same as if they were hacking somebody else's Linux box because you wrote custom drivers or some shit. So I mean, going back to like Snow Crash and inoculating ourselves to the noun chum.
And think viruses. Everyone being the same. All the minds are the same, and the virus affects all the minds. Or if all the minds are different, the virus doesn't affect them as easily. It's really great ideas in this book, and it teaches you a lot about computer security, about how to think like a programmer, how to think like a network engineer, these kind of ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. But anyways, this was a really good episode, Tom.
Yep.
It was.
I think we're out of time, but everyone should read more Snow Crash, 60% through 80%. And until next week, say goodbye, Nick.
Goodbye, Tom.
Goodbye, Nick.